Hello there.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. Very good. It's so still day in your side of the world.
Just about, yeah.
I guess I need more light then. Oh. Hello there.
Uh, Hi. It's the early and on time folks in at the moment. It'll be a swarm of people coming after like 1 or 2 minutes.
Oh, Stefan, I hope that's a fake background.
Oh no, it's the
Sorry,
real one.
sorry.
That's the
I
office
saw not the
space.
other Stefan.
I,
In a bunker. It's great.
Like the alternative is a fairly aged hotel room.
Different kind of bunker.
Yes, so this one is better.
Sorry, I'm getting myself sorted really quick. I'm trying to switch off of another thing. Trying to pull the notes link up. There we go. All right. How's everybody doing? We got a small crowd today. Give it a couple of minutes.
11 people, I think. Like I've seen us only being 6 at some point.
Everyone normally just trickles in. There we go. We got some more. Let's pop that window. Let's pop that bad boy out.
I was already afraid we are out of the hype curve.
Yeah. All right. Here's the meeting link. Let's put that in chat. Quick reminder, go ahead and add yourself to the attendee list. Also, we have the template is up above. I'm going to go ahead and copy that and create next week's meeting so that if we have any discussion items or talking points that we won't have time to get to today, we can throw it on the next meeting and stay out in front. Let's do that. I see Abby's here. Do we have anybody from that's been in the meetings for the maturity assessment work?
I think you have a few of them, including me. I don't think I was in the last one though.
Right, and then Dom and crew, is there anything that needs to be added to discussions here for the synthesis work?
No, the kickoff is enough.
Sounds good. Cool. Well, let's jump into it. Is anybody new here today? We'll typically start off and let new folks introduce themselves so that we can put a name to a face, or keep an eye out for folks, or also help you in any way we can to guide you toward contribution or getting into the Slack channel, and any other resources you may need. So is anybody new today? A lot of familiar faces.
Yes.
Cool. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I can start. I don't mind. My name is Ryan. I'm in the Cloud Native Nordics meetup group, actually with Stefan as well. And I've been the organizer of KCD the last 2 years in Denmark. And I work for a company called Jysk, retailer in the Nordics. And I've been working with the platform model, maturity model for the last 4 or 5 weeks at least with the company, and introducing it to our platform teams, and slowly understanding what it's all about. And there's been many questions fired at me, so now I need to relay those and try and understand where we're heading with this.
Sounds good. You're in the right place. Thanks for joining.
I'm new too. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. My name is Graziano. I'm from Italy. I'm a DevRel engineer in Mia platform, and I'm currently helping with the Italian translation of the maturity model with William and Nicolò. And I'm here first to learn and trying to help the group with the following initiatives, the future initiatives.
Awesome. Welcome. Another one from Mia. Anybody else that's new? All right. Sounds good. Let's go through, and I don't think we have any particular housekeeping items. Let's talk about some of the ongoing work and then get into the discussions. The first item, just really quick, we have a Spanish translation of the maturity model ready to go. There are some challenges related to the DCO and the commit signing requirements that I caused on the existing PR, but the content is up and ready to roll. We should have a new PR up either today or tomorrow and ready to merge. But if we have any native Spanish speakers, feel free to provide some feedback on the open PR that's up there. And we'll get that into the updated PR as well. But excited to have that rolling. I'm surprised that Spanish wasn't one of the first ones to be a translation, but baby steps. Also, go ahead, Dominic.
When you talk about the Spanish translation, we also have an open pull request for the German translation of the glossary, which you can check in our GitHub pull requests, I guess.
And do you guys need a reviewer, or you already have everything you need for that?
Yeah, I think we have 2 reviewers, but the more eyes, the merrier, right? So if you are native German, check it out.
Is there anything blocking it? Anything? Just waiting on-
No, we just have a small discussion around how to translate capabilities, which is interesting. But besides that, it's fine.
Cool. Sounds great. Maturity assessment is next. Wondering if anybody could give an update on how the deep dive meetings have been going for the maturity assessment work.
Oh, come on, y'all. Hi, everyone. I'm getting ready for a presentation later today. But no, they've been going really well. We're going to have a chat today about where we're having some challenges applying the interfaces model to a more strict assessment. So we're going to have a few things have come up as we've been going through this of where the model, when the rubber hits the road, there are some questions of how to apply it. Similar to how do you translate capabilities, right? You don't think that there's going to be problems, then you're like, wait a second, that's actually quite an interesting discussion. So we're going to do that discussion today. And then what I think we're planning on is this will wrap up the sort of discovery phase of this piece of work where we've been doing a lot of wide everybody open calls. And some of the people who've been the most active during those calls are going to come together and try and make a cohesive draft based on the conversations that have been having. So these are going to have everyone's inputs in, but in a cohesive way. That's realistically going to take a month, maybe 2 to kind of come together. But the idea there would be we'd have almost a month or at least a couple of weeks before we go to London to get review from our group and see if we can start socializing and getting feedback from the wider KubeCon community in London KubeCon. So definitely no V1 by London, but if we can have a draft that we all feel is worth getting feedback on by then, that would be a real big success. So that's where we're at.
You're
See,
muted now. Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, nothing.
I'm just trying to, I'm sprinting through so we can get to the product synthesis stuff because I know that's probably gonna take a while. Do we want to, let's skip really quick just over to this next task, which is the panel platforms and product thinking, looking for a host. If somebody added that, if you want to talk about that really quick.
Yep, it's for me. Hello. Yeah, I think I felt something when creating the CFP because I forgot about the host, the people that is going to ask the questions to the speakers. So I think maybe Abby knows the answer as always because no, maybe I think you were in a panel last KubeCon, or maybe I'm wrong.
I was, but I will say that the facilitator is the hardest working role on a panel.
So who is providing this person? Do we have to look for ourselves, or is it something that is provided by
no,
the...
it's so panels at KubeCon can be I think 3 to 5 humans. And within those 3 to 5 humans, they have to cover the role of facilitator and panelist. So if you have, for example, 4 people, you might have 1 facilitator and 3 panelists, but you can have up to 4 panelists. So no, the world is your oyster, Antoine. You can have anyone that you would like to come in and help facilitate that. But keep in mind, it's actually, as I said, it is one of the harder working roles because you have to sort of pull together the questions and get the ball moving. But it also does come with a free ticket to KubeCon. So it would be the same as any other speaker on the panel. So it's a really good opportunity for people who are interested.
Yeah,
if
because
I remember rightly, there's some equality balance there as well with the expecting panels. Is that right?
Yes,
they do. It's
50%,
pretty minimal, to be honest.
Right.
So yeah,
It's not what it should be. But
it's
yeah,
a single non-male participant, at least, and not everyone from the same organization. And I think y'all are covered quite well with both, I think, if I remember correctly, which means that, as I say, the world is your oyster. So yeah.
This is why I wrote a female, because we only have one over the currently 3, but currently it's only 3 speakers and we are lacking the facilitator, as you say. So I'm looking for someone that is willing to fill that, as you say, difficult role. Or maybe we can do it ourselves, but it would be a bit strange to be the facilitator and the speaker as well. So if someone can help, please.
I don't mean to make it scary, by the way, for anyone who's interested. I'm just saying it is definitely the role that you have to like sort of bring people together and make sure everyone's organized, figure out the questions and all that. So if I cannot take that on, I'm on 3 other things during that week, as well as a bunch of other stuff. So I think it's a fantastic group of people though. So if anyone's interested, but it would be their first time facilitating, I'd be happy to talk you through what that role entails, if that helps you feel comfortable taking it on. But I personally can't be the facilitator, unfortunately.
I'd be happy to help, but there's a chance I might end up in America that week. I'll probably find out the next couple of weeks, hopefully, but that's maybe leaving it a little bit close for your planning.
And just to note, Christina's put her hand up in the chat, and I'm also willing, but Christina put her hand up first and should get the first shout.
I'd be glad
Yeah.
to talk with you, Christina. I'm going
Yeah,
to
I'll
send
send
the
you my
link.
email and just reach out. We can schedule something.
As you can write me further down on the backup list if everything fails for everyone else.
And I will put my email as well. But I'm available on the CNCF Slack, so you can contact me via Slack as well.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the product platform as a product research synthesis kickoff. Someone wants to introduce that and chat about that. Feel free.
Yeah, I can just take over. Let me shortly. Could I share my screen?
Yeah.
I have a short
see.
slide deck because why not? Sorry for everybody who was interested so far. I fucked up a bit the timing with dates and the calendar. But don't worry, because now we can just repeat it in this meeting with a bigger crowd, and maybe you're then interested to participate as well. So platform as a product research is going on for quite a while. And now we want to kick off the synthesis, right? Just the conclusion of our research so far. Well, not really conclusion, because I guess it's continuing afterwards, but we have a talk on platform day to present first results. So we finally need some first results. And we also have quite a good base of data so far, so that we can start digesting that data. So what do we even want to do? The research data is available in the pull request 795. So you can already check through it. I hope it also gets approved soonish. I definitely checked triple and double. Thank you, Abby. But it's anonymized now, and so everything should be fine. Yeah. In general, it's survey data or an export of our survey data. We did a short, survey with a couple of questions that were aligned to an interview script we used for interviews. And the transcripts of those interviews, even though they are not perfect, are also available in the pull request, and then soonish available in our Git repository to consume, read through, or let AI read through, whatever we want to do there. So what's the approach now that we have a good database, well, a good base of data that we can work with? First off, I always go one step up because I'm a product manager and flight levels. What is research even, right? Research is a systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. So we are looking for facts and conclusions. That's what we do, and we are interested in the platform as a product research in the scope of facts about current product thinking practices of platform builders, because in this first iteration of our interview script, we focused on platform builders, which is people that build platforms. We had some product managers, some platform engineers, some SREs, different roles, but all of them were part of a team that was directly involved in building platforms. In the future, we might also look at platform leaders, but for now, our data is focused around platform builders, and we aim at finding out product thinking practices and trends within this target group. So we're generally interested in themes and patterns, user needs, pain points, behaviors, all of that stuff that we have identified and talked about in the individual interviews, and connecting those information bits to each other. Also, within one interview or across multiple interviews, and then maybe come up with user personas to see if there's distinct groups across the data set that we have, and so on. We also need assumptions. because, you know, to establish facts, we first need to assume something and then prove it or disprove it. And that's basically the whole research goal. Find an assumption that you like, that you know, can work with, and then prove it or disprove it. How can you get an assumption? Well, you can just have an idea and try that out. You could read through the document. There's always something interesting in those documents that you can then pull out and try to find out if that's an overarching trend. And what we also experimented a bit with, well, hey, ChatGPT, it might not be ChatGPT, but what's it now? DeepSeek. Hey, DeepSeek. You know, what trends can you identify in these documents and so on. So AI analysis is really powerful in the field of research so far. So there's different approaches, right? And also, you know, some more examples, as I said, you can just go through a script and then tag and highlight the transcripts, or tag and highlight interesting bits of the surveys or the survey results. You know, with that, surface themes and patterns across one or multiple transcripts or survey answers. And then, you know, with that, provide evidence, so pull out information pieces and provide evidence from across different interviews and survey responses. Also keep track of questions, and that, you know, that would be valuable for future assumptions. So if you are currently testing one assumption, just, you know, write down, hey, here's also something interesting that might be the next assumption to test. And follow-up meetings, that's something I always love. It's especially on the site always nice if you just all come together in one room and then go onto a whiteboard, put sticky notes up, and then put them down if it's wrong, you know, put others up, and visualize themes and patterns and insights, right? Like pull every information that is interesting for a specific assumption, or in general interesting, out of the interview scripts and the surveys, group them in a whiteboard, and then try to find, you know, some semantic sense within those groupings. That's always nice exercises. And yeah, in general, you know, as I said, it's like working with assumptions. You analyze data for relevant information in the context of your assumption, pull out that relevant data to support or dismiss. And then if you have enough support, you either, you know, present that as backed. And if you don't have enough support, then you adapt your assumption or present as not backed by data. Which can also already be, you know, interesting case there. And that's our research results at the end, proven or disproven assumptions. So how to analyze data, you know, as I said, a lot of approaches that we have there. So now that's the fun part. We can do that individually or in bigger groups. You know, what's enough data or what's enough backing data to be confident? Also fun part, big discussion. You know, when is the data good or not? That's why I think it's always interesting to have more people looking over different assumptions and then come back and, you know, discuss the outcome of that. Maybe also in a repeating little corner in our things here, or have you know, repeating meetings that this time I don't fuck up, but actually make sure it's the right ones. Considerations in general, when it comes to research, we all have biases. So be mindful of your biases, and, you know, especially if you're using AI tools. Also, AI tools are biased, and they lose a lot of nuance by you know, being wired differently. So we tested around with AI a bit because we wanted to present already some synthesis, but that's quite some work, and we weren't too happy with the results so far. But we also realized that there's a lot of, you know, weighing or a lot of weight on different, you know, things that people say that make sense semantically for people to read it, but not really for AI. So there's always a bit of a lost nuance when relying on AI tools. And that's why it's also very important to document your approaches. So which tool did you use? Which prompts did you use? Which responses did you get? That's why, for example, we have also in the in the Git repository, we were making sure that we have the raw data, like the as unmanipulated as possible data, that everybody has the same set that we work with, and not already run AI over it so that we lose some nuances or whatever. So everybody has the same starting point, and from there we can then document what approach we did to pull out information objects that are interesting for assumptions or not, to prove or disprove stuff. And insights, always nice. We really want to understand not just the research results, but we also want to learn about how we actually do research within an open source community like ours, right? This can be a really good repeatable process for other researchers. And so that's why documenting your approach and all that is really important. If you use AI, if you just do it on your own, with human brain like Ape, also possible and interesting for us. So where can you help? Generally, there's different levels. You can just completely drive the research, happy with that. You could also just participate in the full process, but you can also just do partial work, right? Just read and highlight the scripts that we have, the transcripts that we have for the surveys, pull out highlights that are interesting for you, or come up with some methods or prompts to surface themes and patterns, or provide evidence across the data that we have and all that. And then just, focus on the methodology and less on the getting results with that. Or check, just check in on assumptions and AI outputs, because we should definitely not, blindly rely on AI outputs when it comes to that research, but we always have to make sure that somebody also looks over it, that it actually makes sense at the end, right? It's not that much data. We currently have in the process of the PR now has 5 interview scripts and 19 research data blocks, like survey blocks. Sorry. But I want to get to 30 survey blocks. We're currently at 22, I think. So a bit more exposure there. And we have 5 more, I think even 6 more transcripts that are currently in the process of being anonymized, and will come into the GitHub repo as soon as the other repo is merged. So we continue to grow the base of data that we have. But I think with 5 and 19, we can already start seeing some first trends across that data. And yeah, pull out some information. Any questions to our approach here?
Just want to quickly say a few things on top of that. Thanks, Dominic.
Sure.
This is primarily a generative project where we want to understand what's currently happening. So to that end, if you want to take the, and Dominic alluded to it and said it explicitly, if you want to take the assumptions approach, like you have something you want to see if the limited data we have teases out to a certain degree, you can approach it that way. The other way is bottom up, which is working within the data to see what insights, patterns, themes emerge without you having any assumptions going into it. I think it's also helpful to think about, we talk about facts and conclusions. I think it's a good way to frame it to talk about signal strength. Like, we may not have anything conclusively definitive that can stand on its own completely as unassailable truth, but we can have different levels of signal. There might be some evidence that points in a certain direction, or overwhelming evidence that leads to an insight, and that sets us up for future research, other ways to interrogate what we're learning now, since this is kind of the first step in. And just want to reinforce attribution. It's going to be incredibly important for anybody participating to source where their evidence is coming from down to, the script. I think at that level, it'll be easy enough to find it, because when we get into that room and we start looking at a whiteboard and we're putting up our, blocks, our themes, our insights, the evidence for it, we might run into issues, and I suspect we will, where there might be some seemingly contradictory insights or evidence. And we'll need to very easily trace it back to the underlying sources, the prompts, the raw responses from any AI tools that you use for that. So we really need that traceability all the way back. And the final thing I'll say is just reading what other teams, not in an open source ways, but teams that are doing a lot of research with AI tooling and trying to wrap their mind around it and understand where that balance is between, human and AI. One of the big things I've read is that AI can be good at picking up and driving insights that are missed by teams because of their own inherent biases. But the same goes the other way, right? Where people will pick up on nuances and come to certain insights that AI will completely miss. So part of this research is to see what is that balance look like for us? What's the balance between human researchers and AI? And that's it for me.
I would encourage people to take a look at these, especially some of the forthcoming scripts, because we have a very broad distribution of maturities throughout the teams that we talk to. And some really interesting stuff going on, and some of them, and then others, earlier in the maturity spectrum.
That was one of the questions I had. I was curious, have you guys thought about cohorts in different ways? Like, it could be like from a maturity standpoint, it could be the size of the organization, maybe some other factors as you've interviewed these organizations. Have you thought about grouping them in any way?
Yeah, generally we have pulled the information, I think, of most, potentially not of all of them, but we had this survey that everybody should have gone through that got interviewed with what's their company size, stuff like that, that can help relate back. I think in the current transcript, it's not there's not with like in the current batch of anonymized transcripts, it's not everywhere put in yet. I might want to check that and make sure that every transcript has like the company size in it as long as we know it. But our idea was not really, playing too much into what is the maturity of a company and like have different sizes, different impacts of maturity. The goal of this research was really which product patterns are there and like which product management patterns are there and how do people prioritize, how do people communicate new functionalities? How do they generally have the whole process of coming up with a new feature and then delivering that feature? That was way more the focus in this one.
Yeah, Corbin, I appreciate it. You've been consistent on this theme of making sure we can categorize. So yeah, as Dominic said, we have some demographics. It's probably a good idea to bring it back into the raw transcripts, just like industry size. Our kind of initial approach was to see how quickly we could line up interviews. based on that, we would see, kind of which buckets people fell into in terms of industries, company size, so we can correlate product practices back to that because we need some way to frame it. It's, differences between companies of different sizes, companies in different spaces, more regulated, less regulated. We want to get to that. I think we were more hopeful in the beginning, I think, and in terms of how fast this thing would move. So I think now we can be probably more intentional about starting to find people that match certain categorizations just to make sure there's kind of enough reference in each bucket to compare.
Also, one point that I was a bit surprised by, I mean, I'm German, so I'm not that surprised by it, but the data protection was big for some companies. Some companies were really sensitive about their data. And, already which industry and the size would be quite an indicator together with some more information within the interview. So that's why for some of them, we definitely don't have that data because they also wouldn't want us to, publish that. But
Yeah,
this was really important. Yeah, sorry.
I was more curious about like what David said, right? Like if you look through the data, you're gonna see like a lot of variation, and there's probably some grouping in there, and I don't know what that is, right? But I was just curious if you've thought about like grouping the results in some way, like based on, I don't know. It's probably gonna map back to what you're talking about in terms of having a hypothesis, proving or disproving that hypothesis, and then having the supporting data to suggest what it is, right? It could be, hey, smaller companies, have this pattern or something, and then trying to figure out, is that actually true? Oh no, we have that in large companies too. So I was just curious if you guys had thought about that. Thank you.
Great point. I think what this brings up is also that this is just a starting point. Like we don't have that much data anyways at this point. It's not like we already did an interview with like 300 companies. Whatever assumptions we get out of here are definitely a good point or a good starting point that we can say, let's do a more pointed, more focused research based on whatever we get out of this initial data set.
One thing that I'm interested in trying to see, okay, to Corbin's point as well, but this is just down the road and tying back things like the maturity model, but was doing some work on the maturity model a couple of weeks ago, and the question came up of like, well, how mature do I actually need to be if we're trying to right size that? And it seems to be based on like certain sizes of organizations have different challenges and need to be at different maturity levels, but there's some sort of correlation there. And I'm curious if we'll be able to see that emerge maybe later in the year because everyone wants to move from left to right, but at what point are you over optimizing and actually spending more time than you need to be in certain areas? I'll be curious to see.
Yeah. I mean, one other example of like what's interesting stuff in that data is the difference between organizations conscious use of product frameworks to prioritize, because most of the companies say, no, for prioritization, we don't use a specific framework. But if you then go through the process of how they came up with a feature and then did that feature over another, which is a different part of the question set, a lot of those companies actually unconsciously use already, known frameworks. And some of them even named that framework then, and then you're like, oh, interesting. So at the end you have one, but more unconsciously than conscious. So yeah, there's already some very interesting data in there that that I at least realized throughout interviews.
It goes the other way as well. It's why we have the gut checks on questions from different kind of angles, where people will say they do something, and then you look at their, a walkthrough of how they approach something historically, and none of those things are present. And by the way, as everybody who participates goes through this kind of synthesis process, like one is we just get the benefit of doing a full loop of this. So everybody has the same kind of sense of how this whole thing comes together, how we can improve every part of it, and what does it look like to actually tease out relevant insights. But as you go through it, it would be great if people kept kind of your own notes on what you wish we would have asked or how we wish we would have asked it in the script or for follow-up research. Because that's part of going through this process is these questions will emerge, things that seem obvious once you go through it, but we didn't think to ask in the original interview.
And where's the best place to provide feedback?
In terms of on the transcript directly, or
If you're going through the synthesis and trying to provide some of the, or the feedback that you just mentioned as well. Like if we
Yeah,
think of some things that we wish had been asked, because we have the platform as a product channel, but it's private. Do we need to invite people to that channel? Is there a Google Docs? Or how can we provide feedback? Is it on the issue?
Yeah, good question. I mean, everybody who's not in there already and wants to be message in the working group channel, I think that would be the best way, and we'll start pulling names in just so we can keep the group of people who want to do research focused, so we don't muddy the other channels with research specific conversations. In terms of keeping track of this stuff, I'm not sure. Maybe a Google Doc might be the easiest place. In terms of everybody's kind of like everybody just picking up the raw research and processing it on their own, the path of least resistance, like keep those notes in a way that makes sense to you. And then we can share them in the channel and start grouping them into like one unified doc as like raw notes so we can always reference them. I think maybe that'd be the best way. I think an issue is a little too cumbersome. There's maybe a little.
I mean, we already have an issue at least. I put it into the link into the chat. So we could collect drive
true.
links or whatever within that issue.
Actually, that could work. Maybe that's the easiest thing. If everybody has their own Google Doc and just comments on the issue with a link to it. That seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, let's try that first. Let's, everybody independently work through the data that we have in the pull request, work on the ticket or give us feedback on the ticket, and then in 2 weeks we're back in this meeting, and if it didn't work out well, then we'll find a different solution.
Good job. Cool. Thanks, guys, for the update. Does anybody have any questions or comments on that before we move on to discussions? I put a little note in the working group notes or in the meeting notes to participate in the synthesis and feedback. Just ask for access to the platform as a product channel via the platform's Slack channel. All right, discussions. Brian, you're up on Content Club.
Thank you so much. Just yet another reminder that the Content Club is a goal for February. So for those that missed it, Content Club is really simple. It's just an opportunity for those that are interested in producing written content or videos to kind of focus our efforts around one theme. And the idea is that we kind of amplify that topic as well as getting some great insights because we've got lots of points of view. For February, the plan is that we'll all write or produce content around the concept of team topologies in the real world. So that's a fairly broad scope. So I'm looking forward to seeing what people have to say about it. I've also had a chat with Matthew Skelton and Steve, authors of Team Topologies and Flow Engineering. They're interested in helping us promote it, which is kind of nice. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I'll try and catch up with them as well. So yeah, if you're currently writing blogs or you're interested in, or you're making videos, this is a good opportunity to work with some other people. For me personally, it's just a really good way of finding topics for me to write about, quite frankly. So we've got a Slack channel over at content-club. Come join us over there, share ideas. But yeah, generally just get writing, get producing, and it'd be great to see what we can put together.
Sounds
Just
good.
would it be fair to ask if anyone's interested in writing or decided they're going to write something or produce something? And if so, if they want to verbalize what they plan to write about, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll get in that content club channel and ask and get aligned on some of that stuff too. I definitely would like to help. But Chris and I were already tagged on the issue with relation to this topic anyway. So it sounds like I'm up to bat. So I'll get some guidance as well.
Awesome. The more the merrier. If anyone's not done any writing before or something and they want some help, I'm more than happy to help review or have kind of check-in meetings, etc. I'm by no means an expert, but yeah, happy to help kind of push things along.
I have a quick question on that topic, if that's okay. I just wondered, where are we planning on publishing? Are we all like publishing on our own existing places that we publish, or?
Yes, that's the plan. So we'll keep the content individual, and just to clarify, none of the content is endorsed by the CNCF anyway. My goal with this is if we can get content initially produced by individuals, published on whatever platform you choose, that's great. I haven't quite worked out how we help each other promote yet, but I've got a couple of weeks to work that out. And what I'd love to see at the end of this is maybe at the end of February, we've got all these different points of view. That's when I think we can get together as a working group and maybe produce a blog post that rounds up some of the opinions and some of the ideas. And again, that's another way of getting a second cycle at promoting it.
Cool. Bring back the web ring.
That's exactly, it's the blog roll all over again, right?
I like it. I think that sounds great. That's a great plan.
Awesome, thanks.
And maybe there is a way to promote the results, because this is something I talked a few months ago, that we could do something at the tag level, at the working group level, blog post, something that is like the link I'm posted every month, the what's new. It's something that I love in the Svelte community. Every month, in fact, the community creates a summary of every new things around the topics, blog post, new video, new things. So maybe this is something we could do at the working group level. Every beginning of the month, we open a merge request, something to prepare the blog post. Everyone contributes, and at the end of the month, at the first of the new month, we publish. So your community content could be exposed via something more neutral.
I think that'd be awesome.
So I don't know if someone has time, as always, to try to start this.
So how about if we try and get the content produced in February? We use that as the initial kickoff for that type of newsletter. So we'd look to maybe write that in March. Colin, I'm guessing because that would be kind of a more formal thing, we'd need to think about how we, endorse that from a CNCF perspective. So I don't know what the mechanics of that looks like.
Yeah, I think we can work on that. We've got some things in motion with regard to understanding the kind of the purpose of the group and how to produce content and other materials kind of through the TOC changes. So I think it aligns well, but I'll put some thought to how that gets actualized, what that needs to look like. In my head, it may be just publishing another part of the, sorry, I got like a fly buzzing me over here. We could publish it to the website, maybe alongside the maturity model and glossary and some other maybe platform resources or something as well, but I'll give that some thought.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I think there's two elements there. There's one which would be an official blog post of some description where the CNCF provide our feedback on what we've seen. And then the other is like a newsletter where we're just reporting on what's happening in the community, I suppose. The latter, I'm presuming, is easier for us to get a stamp on. But that'd be great if you can help. Phenomenal.
Sure. Yeah, we'll ask about that. I'm going to just get those notes down. Do we have any, we have some open discussion and we've got about 10 minutes left. Maybe we do a little bit of quick lean coffee, but are there any topics that anyone or questions anyone wants to pose for the group to discuss? So your chance to get feedback from a bunch of people on any ideas. projects, thoughts, challenges. Don't let it waste.
There's a conversation on Slack that I kicked off around metrics in platform engineering, and I'm still scratching my head on that one. Some really interesting feedback around how companies should approach metrics. But I just had a conversation today with a large retail customer, and I gave them the usual review of all the frameworks that are out there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people struggling to work out what to measure and why. And I think there's a gap there for helping people decide how to choose metrics and what's important and how to manage things like Goodhart's Law, for example. Don't know if anyone else wants to talk about that, but that's something that's been boggling me all week.
I think that could tie back to our discussion in the assessment channel where like what are we trying to measure here and why do we measure? Is it to like validate return of investment or the speed of our platform of like delivering stuff, or what are we trying to do here? I see Colin has the answer for us.
I'm not sure if I have the answer, but I've got some thoughts from experience and from some things that we've seen. And I think the biggest challenge that I've faced with helping an organization try to answer that same question is helping them step backwards and look at the larger business and just understand the broader the broader business value that gets delivered by IT, or the perception of the business value and how that ties back. And I find that a lot of organizations have no idea how to define that in the first place. And so when we talk about in platform engineering what to measure, and sometimes the question comes up, it's like, well, I need to reduce the amount of context switching time for my developers, or some other assumptions. We find that there's no mechanism to measure that in place already. There's maybe the technical folks say that this is a big challenge, but the business doesn't understand that that's a challenge. They don't understand how that impacts the business and why should we invest in that, in something to help resolve that or bring that down. And it's just an observation of mine. I think that until we can more clearly answer that challenge, and maybe it's having clear guidance on like what's the value of platform engineering, or some examples of real boots on ground value impact or cost impact at an organization, related to software development or anything else, and being able to map that back and say, hey, if we had a platform engineering initiative, this is where we would focus. These are the challenges we would knock down, and these are the needles that it would move. It's really, 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 really hard to get a business to think that way. It seems the easiest way, though, for me to think about it as far as like actualizing metrics for platform engineering versus software development metrics, is kind of two-part. One is the organization needs to consider or think about their platform or platforms as distinct software products, right? Things that have a life cycle. They can be versioned, or they have components that can be versioned, and some things around that. Because we think that the platform team is the platform, and so we try to put team metrics in place that don't help us observe the success of the platform itself. We're trying to measure the team and its impact, and there's some weird kind of disconnect there, but the ability to kind of separate the platform team from the things that they're managing that make up the platform has kind of emerged as a first step for us when helping folks. But then also, now that we have this thing in place, because we may have things like uptime and other reliability monitoring metrics, or our ability to reinstantiate the platform, recover from failure, or some things there, we're going to have those metrics. But on the other end, how do we measure the success of the platform? And if the users that we serve, or that we're providing a platform for, if there are no metrics tied back to their success and how it impacts the business, and an understanding of what makes life difficult for them, or what things the platform should what value the platform should provide to the users. Without that channel, you can't measure success. But if you do understand that, then I've recommended before that a roll up of your users' metrics can be an effective measure of the success or the impact of a platform. If you can do things like say, hey, we have teams that are off platform or off path over here, and this is what success looks like for them, or some crossover in these metrics. Here are our users on our platform. Users on our platform see a 50% reduction in time to release. And we could measure that by saying, okay, we're going to onboard a new team, and before they were on the platform, this is their time to release. And now that they're on the platform, initially, this is their new time to release, or some data. That's one way. But I think we have to roll up the metrics that our users are following into our understanding of the success metrics of the platform. And you could even go as far to say, we need to provide better visibility to our users for what their metrics are, and the visibility of that needs to be part of the platform. But wanted to thought stream a little bit there. So 2 parts. One is considering that the platform is a thing that has a life cycle and can have metrics associated with it, that you can measure the impact on the business, not associated with the platform team directly. And then the other side is understanding the value the end users deliver to the organization and how the platform can address their challenges.
That's interesting. I think that's part of the challenge, is that I don't know if everyone's the same, but I'm talking to customers about metrics. They're usually mixing up developer metrics that are consuming their platform metrics that they are either using to demonstrate their success or prove to themselves that it's working. They've got their own metrics for the development of the platform. They've got business metrics to try and showcase why they spent all that money. And then on top of all that, you've got the psychology of metrics and what happens as soon as you start recording something, and our immediate negative reaction to measurements. Does anyone have any good reading recommendations on metrics? It's one of those topics that I've seemed to have skipped over somehow. Like, what's the team topologies, the flow engineering version of metrics, if anyone knows it?
Somebody posted I need to take my hand down, sorry. Somebody posted the Microsoft guide. In Microsoft has some obvious tie back and inspiration, I think. But they came out with a capability maturity model for platform engineering. And there's some good information though in there down at the end, and I'm visualizing the left menu down at the bottom of like kind of how to plan platform development and some things there. And they talk about objectives and key results. And there's another section for planning scenarios, and the scenarios are the practical work and the understanding of the capabilities that need to be delivered in order to move the needle on the objectives and key results. But you need to define those OKRs first. I thought that was a really good refresher and a good reading. And we've been referencing it internally to kind of tie back and help people understand from the engineering level what the business value is that's delivered and what that map back looks like. But I appreciated the way that it was positioned as far as the scenarios and planning the platform work in that Microsoft guide.
I just want to shout out to Lou. His feedback about thinking about this like an exercise routine really helped. I used that today in terms of, we all know what exercises we have, but everyone has their own program. Cool, thanks.
I was just going to chip in and say a good general recommendation for this topic is how to measure anything. This is like a really good starting point, which covers a lot of the topics that you're talking about in terms of people's mistakes about what metrics mean and how to use them and subjects like that. Obviously, it doesn't relate to platform engineering directly, but it's a really good source material. So yeah, if anyone wants to read something to prime that conversation, that's a good place to start.
Awesome. Added to basket. Thank you.
Awesome. we're kind of at the end of we are at the end of time, not just kind of. We're at the end of time. Quick reminder: if there are topics that you were thinking about, or maybe you weren't sure if you wanted to share them today, or we just didn't get time to them, please go ahead in the meeting document and go ahead and put them in next week's or next meeting's template to propose them. You'll see discussions, example discussion. Just go ahead and add them there. And then that'll give you 2 weeks to kind of prepare to bring that topic up, but also let us prioritize and let other people see what's top of mind for them. That also helps us administer and get ready for the next meeting without having to go find things to bring up as well. So we're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Does anybody have any last questions, comments, concerns, shout outs before we jump back to our Tuesdays? All right, y'all. Thanks a bunch for coming today. As usual, jump into the WG platform Slack. If you want to participate in the research, please ask to get access to that channel. Watch out for the content club, as well as issues you can contribute to on the Tag App Delivery GitHub. But again, thanks again. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.